Welcome back to Next Gen Console Watch, our show following all the news and rumors on the PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X. I'm Daemon Hatfield, and as always, I'm joined by Ryan McCaffrey, host of IGN's Xbox podcast, Podcast Unlocked.
Howdy, Damon.
And from IGN's PlayStation podcast, Podcast Beyond, Max Scoville joins us once again. Welcome back, Max.
Howdy.
And we've got good news from both sides of the aisle this week. Good news for people who are still trying to score themselves a PlayStation 5, and good news for Xbox's whole strategy to what it's trying to do with the Xbox brand. You should be about 4 times as likely to find a PS5 this holiday season if you're still looking for one. New figures show a 400% increase in PS5 shipments to the United States year over year. Senior analyst at MST Financial David Gibson shared the stats on Twitter, which you should be able to see here. It shows a huge spike in the number of units being shipped to the U.S. in September 2022. Incidentally, that was the month that The Last of Us Part 1 was released. So you can see that shipments were very low in December and January, then they started to rise through March and fell again, and now they've been on a steady increase since June. And Gibson noted that the increase will in part be to prepare for God of War Ragnarok's launch on November 9th. Incidentally, fun fact, last year in September 3rd, 2021, IGN posted a news article with the headline, "The chip shortage affecting gaming will remain very tight until at least next September," which turned out to be very prescient indeed. So, Max, a 400% increase in PS5 shipments year over year. Do you think this bodes well for shoppers hoping to score a PS5 this holiday season?
I really hope so. You know, it's weird to hear that it is the fastest selling PlayStation console to date, and at the same time people are struggling to get them, you know, aside from scalpers who seem to be quite good at getting garage full of them. I really hope people can get their hands on it, because it's, you know, we say, you know, in the advent of The Last of Us Part 1 or God of War Ragnarok, this is a good time to have a PlayStation 5, but it's also, you know, we're 2 years into the console life cycle. It's like, you should be able to go into a store and buy one of these. It's, I mean, that's sort of a necessary thing to be playing a video game console, is the ability to acquire it. And it's, I don't know, it's such an absurd problem to have. Like, we see this, you know, in the past with sort of the early days of a console coming out, but for it to still be the case this far into the generation is kind of baffling. So I really hope that anybody out there who hasn't gotten a PS5, who's been trying to get one, can finally get their hands on one. And also, I hope that the scalpers feel the burn and they suffer, because they deserve it.
Yeah. Ryan, as of this taping, the Xbox Series X is still pretty difficult to find as well. Any insight into what its availability might be this holiday season?
I mean, you always plan, these guys always plan for Q4 being the biggest quarter. I mean, that's not rocket science. So you'd have to expect that's been planned for, but hopefully, as is the case with Sony, just the supply will ramp even higher than anticipated. You know, whether it's from securing additional components from wherever they need to get them, but you know, Microsoft. Now, to be fair, Microsoft doesn't have the big holiday titles to really, you know, anchor their console sales on, but they've got the promise of a huge 2023 with Starfield, Redfall, Diablo 4, et cetera, to look forward to. So, you know, it's maybe not quite as much of a crunch for Microsoft in the sense of, like, just that immediacy of needing one right now. But at the same point, you want to have, if people want to be able to have one to wrap and put under a Christmas tree, you don't want to deny your customers that if you can avoid it. So hopefully the Series X will soon join the Series S. Like, the Series S is, that one I think we can officially, maybe not officially, but we can unofficially call the drought over on that one. Like, that was even on sale at Target.
Yeah, no, Brian Altano just traded in his Microsoft points and I guess walked into Target and got that in a box of Count Chocula. So
yeah, it's $50 off with a controller. So there are plenty of Series S's around, which is also great. But for the core gamers watching this show, who are either trying to acquire a Series X for themselves or for someone, you know, a friend or family member, you know, let's hope that the Series X follows the Series S in availability here sooner rather than later.
Yeah, Sony definitely has the big holiday title this year with God of War Ragnarok. Max, what do you expect the split to be between PS4 and PS5 copies sold? I know that if they're trying to get a lot more PS5s out there, I think surely most copies will be sold on PS4, but I don't know, you think it's 75, 25%? What would you think?
Oof. I'm terrible with numbers, but for anybody who has a PS5 and isn't getting God of War Ragnarok,
Right.
Who are you? Why would you do that? Like, get God of War. What's wrong with you?
Yeah. It'll be really interesting to see how that shakes out. Ryan, over on the Xbox side, the good news we're referring to is that Xbox Game Pass reportedly generated $2.9 billion on consoles, just for Xbox Game Pass on consoles, in 2021 last year. These are according to documents from Brazil's Administrative Council for Economic Defense, figures that were shared by Tweaktown. This is all because of the big acquisition that they're trying to do with Activision. Regulators from all over the world are taking a look at this deal, and they all get to have their say. So that's why these numbers are coming up. So, Ryan, what do you make of this figure? Almost $3 billion just from Xbox Game Pass on consoles last year.
Well, I think it's the floor of what Game Pass is going to look like moving forward. I mean, you're talking about nearly $3 billion, as you noted, Damon, just on console. The PC Game Pass numbers are no doubt a smaller subscriber figure than the Xbox number, but there's plenty of room for that PC number to grow as the message continues to sink in over time that no, Microsoft really is putting all their stuff out on PC. Look, here you go. Here's Starfield, here's Redfall, et cetera, et cetera. But 2022, again, unfortunately, Microsoft really hasn't given a lot of incentive to subscribe as far as the new AAA tentpole stuff. There have been some good games on Game Pass, don't get me wrong. But next year and moving forward into 2024 and just further into this generation, you're going to see these studios as the pandemic's effects on game development finally start to wane, and all of these new Microsoft studios settle into more of a rhythm. Next year looks like it's going to be the start of it, and it's just going to be, it should just be a pretty steady flow of content starting next year, and not just smaller scale stuff. Like, we're talking AAA, big deal video games. Gears 6 is going to be down the way, but again, first up is Starfield in sometime in the first half of this year, and Diablo is going to be a big one. Redfall should be anticipated as well. So yeah, I just feel like this $2.9 billion number is very impressive, and there's so much room to grow on the PC side, and still a ton of overhead, a ton of room to grow just in general with the tentpole games that are finally going to start to come to Xbox.
$3 billion definitely sounds like a lot of money. Another interesting note that came out of these filings is that total Xbox revenues in 2021 were $16.3 billion, which means that Xbox Game Pass on consoles made up about 18% of Xbox's total revenue. But I wonder, does that number actually sound a little low, considering that's Xbox's entire marketing strategy is to try to get people to subscribe to Xbox, but the revenue they're getting from it is 18%.
I don't know. It's tough to say. I would guess, without having the details in front of me, that hardware's also factored into that when you're selling $500 consoles and $300 consoles. So that's going to skew those numbers quite a bit. But yeah, you're right, Damon. I think there is definitely room for that number to go higher, that figure to go even higher in the coming years.
Yeah, I think what it tells me is that there are still a lot of people buying games on Xbox as well. Max, Sony just revamped the PlayStation Plus service this year. Thinking about last year, though, what does your gut tell you that the PS Plus revenue would be higher or lower than $2.9 billion?
It's got to be like 8 or 9, maybe 10 billion, I think. No, I'm kidding.
So?
I doubt very much that it's close to that, just because Xbox has been so good about just hammering Game Pass, day one, Game Pass. Whereas PlayStation Plus, I feel like sort of had a head start in terms of being like, hey, you pay this monthly fee, you get some free games, but they were definitely late to the party as far as there being any kind of large-scale library, or the sense of this really being a true subscription service. And the added tiers are good. They just announced a ton of new games that are coming out, which feels like a pretty hefty chunk of decent AAA games. Really good selection there. But again, they kind of muddied the messaging there.
And as long as Sony is holding out those first-party games from being day one on the service, that I feel like that's just going to hold the potential of PlayStation Plus back.
Yeah, totally. No, it's weird. It's sort of an odd time to be a Sony player. You know, I should be keeping better track of this, but off the top of my head, I cannot think what exclusive stuff came to PlayStation Plus. There was the roller champs. No, I'm terrible. I'm doing a very bad job at my job right now. But no, I mean it's to your point. Like Xbox, they have, you know, they don't have any massive AAA, huge, big games on Game Pass this fall, but they do have this kind of wonderful smattering of, like, you know, little indie games. Like I do a monthly video of like all the big games coming out this month, and frequently there'll be like a handful of like sort of noteworthy indies that are coming to everything, but they're on Game Pass on Xbox, and it seems like kind of a no-brainer. I mean, looking at like Shredder's Revenge, that was a huge game across all the different platforms, and it was effectively free on Game Pass, which is, you know, it's hard to argue with that. Whereas, you know, on the PlayStation Plus side of things, you kind of got to, you know, put on your reading glasses to figure out exactly which tier you want to sign up for in the first place.
Yeah, Plague Tale Requiem's day one on Game Pass coming up. You know, you could pay $60 for it on PlayStation, but it's right there in your subscription on Xbox. And Back 4 Blood was another one last fall, and MLB The Show. So there's
Hey man,
it's getting there.
With the DualSense controller, you can feel the rats.
Okay, we have the results of last week's poll. We were talking about CD Projekt's long roadmap that they shared last week, and we asked which of the upcoming CD Projekt Red games are you most excited for, and unsurprisingly, it's the known quantities everyone is excited for. The new Witcher trilogy and the sequel to Cyberpunk. Those came in first and second place, and then the lesser known quantities, this new IP, Project Hadar, and then the Witcher multiplayer game, they were coming in pretty far behind. Not too surprising there. For this week, we want to know, have you managed to purchase yourself a PlayStation 5 yet? Yes? No? Or are you not even trying? Not interested? Make sure to vote at IGN.com. We'll share the results with you next week. And that's going to do it for this edition of Next Gen Console Watch. I'm actually going to be away next week. I'll be on vacation, but somebody will be stepping in to host in my stead. Please be excited for that. And the episode will air at the same time, Friday, 6 a.m. Pacific, 9 a.m. Eastern, with more PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series X news. Thank you to both Max and Ryan. Thank you to everyone working in both of our LA and San Francisco studios to make this all possible. We'll see you all next week.